And welcome back to Ask the Oligarchy. Got the oligarchy on the line. Oligarchy, how are you today?
I'm doing fine. The market is up, and so that's good for America and good for me.
Yeah, it's good because the day after the debt ceiling passed, the US government printed $350 billion and gave it all to weapons contractors and banks. So I'm sure that that had an excellent impact on the market.
I'm sure it did, and excellent impact on my investments.
And meanwhile, everybody else's money just got diluted by 350 billion. But hey, I
Hey,
must I must admit, oligarchy, I'm a bit sad today.
why is that?
Uh, because of this nonsense that I am seeing in Atlanta, where members of the Atlanta Solidarity Fund were arrested with assault rifles for providing bail to protesters against Cop City in Atlanta, which is this police training city that they want to build so they can better learn how to escalate everything and shoot people quicker. I don't think you would need a whole city to teach people how to de-escalate things. During the protesting of building this monstrosity, a protester was shot 57 times, who was unarmed and sitting cross-legged in the forest because one of the police officers got a itchy trigger finger and shot another police officer, which then caused all the police officers to shoot the protester. So protests have gotten even bigger because of this incident. And now the police are allowed to go to a nonprofit organization that is giving people bail money. And there are 100 of these in the country, is giving people bail money so that they don't have to sit in jail for protesting. Very common thing, been going on since the 60s. And so the Atlanta police raided with assault rifles their compound or their office space, arrested everybody, and has essentially shut them down so that they can no longer issue this money to help people with bail when they get arrested for protesting. Now, that is a police state. Is this what it's coming to, oligarchy? Is this where the oligarchy finally gives all the police stations tanks and tries this takeover of the American people?
Okay. First of all, I would like to point out that the mayor and the police chiefs in Atlanta are African American. So that certainly shows that African Americans can rise to powerful positions despite the alleged systemic racism, which people claim the United States is based
You're
on.
deflecting. What does that have to do with police brutality and police abuse
Well,
of power?
pointing out, I will get
Okay, have your
point
preamble. Okay.
out that what we're dealing with here shows that there is no systemic racism in this country. While there may be racism on both sides, it is individualist and it is not systemic in terms of the United States. Now, um, the person who was unfortunately shot, the police claim that that person shot at an officer first. So
But the
here,
official records show that it was another officer because they count all the bullets and they know what happened. It was another officer that shot the other officer, and then they all opened fire on the protester in a
well,
horrible accident.
you know, I haven't seen that as an official record.
I
I
will be
know,
sure and post it below.
Okay. Um, I stopped following the story after I read about the initial incident. But if what you're saying is true, given what we've seen in Minnesota and Missouri, if in fact these police officers had no reason to shoot this person, they would be fired and charged with murder.
So there are charges pending for manslaughter because, of course, it was an accident. But I mean, this is just what caused the increase in protesting. I mean, of course, I'm upset about the death, but it's more upsetting that the police would then go attack an institution, a nonprofit institution who is abiding by the law. They are doing nothing illegal. What they are doing is making it more difficult for the police to stop the protesters. And in last I checked, in this country, we had the right to organize and we had the right to protest, and that is a part of free speech. So please explain to me how this is not an incredible abuse of power, why it is not front page news that the police are allowed to engage in this type of behavior.
Well, if in fact what you're saying is true, and
Which it is, links below.
I haven't seen that, but
do you want to see it? I have it pulled up. Well, I mean, it won't. I can show you. So why don't we just start with the assumption that I'm not lying to you?
Well, I'm not saying you're lying to me. All I'm saying is you have a perspective that may be different from the actual facts. Everything you say.
But people, just notice this is the oligarchy at work. Evade, evade, evade. Now,
what I'm trying to say is, if what you're saying is correct, then ultimately this will be determined by the courts, and the courts will determine exactly what you said, which is this is free speech and is protected by the Constitution.
But meanwhile, this has still happened to these people. So it's still, first of all, they have to spend all the money to get out of it for something that's just completely wrong. Their service is shut down, which is a real damage to the community and damages to their nonprofit. And are they going to keep doing it? Because after they go through this, how uncomfortable are they going to be realizing that they can't get around this? They have to go through it. And if they want to do it again, all they have to do is do it again. And you're right back where you started, living a really crappy life that you didn't sign up for.
Okay. All I'm saying is, if your set of facts is correct, they would be in court right now getting an injunction. Now, I
would have to look into that. Maybe they are. Well, I suspect they are. But it's still this intimidation tactic. How is this not front page news? How is this not being brought up as a topic that free speech is eroding in this country? And here's a clear example of it. Clear intimidation.
Okay. How can you say the media is ignoring this? I thought you
have to go to Slate magazine to find anything really about it. You have to go to it's not on ABC, it's not on CNN, it's not on Fox, it's not on anything.
Oh, because the oligarchy controls all those media.
Exactly.
Aha! I see it all clearly now.
Well, I would hope so.
Well, it's surprising to me, since the media that you've all mentioned, though you didn't mention MSNBC.
It's not on there either.
I would think they would love to publicize this.
No, nobody wants it publicized on either side of the aisle, because they want Cop City. They want to do what they want.
I'm calling it cop city. It's a training facility
where they learn how to shoot people better.
where they're trained to be police officers. Now, why are they protesting? Because unfortunately, the city of Atlanta has chosen forested area to put the the training facility in.
Seems
So,
completely reasonable. Put it somewhere else in the concrete jungle.
okay. The point is,
Knock down a housing development, a HUD house or two. There you go. Or just kick everybody out of a HUD neighborhood and then you have a pre-built one.
there's nothing illegal with what Atlanta is doing. Now, you're right. People have a right to protest, but they are trespassing on city property.
And they're still allowed to get bail from a third party who is a nonprofit as a donation. They are allowed. This is permitted in this country.
Okay. And I'm not arguing with
Dodd-Frank, you can buy free speech there.
I'm not arguing with you about that. And if what you say is true, that the city of Atlanta is trying to stop that, I suspect this will wind up in the courts, and the courts will determine that free speech is protected, and the city will be prevented from doing anything further.
Look, this doesn't take, this is what I hate about the legal system. This does not take a jury, does not take a judge. The facts are clear. There's already precedent. If the law can't filter down to, oh wait, law enforcement, that they actually understand the laws that have already been passed in this country, then our law enforcement department has real problems.
Okay.
Because this is even common sense, yet this protocol has been established. There would not be 100 of these nonprofits that do this unless it was an established protocol in this country under our legal system.
Okay, all I can say is if the city of Atlanta is violating the constitutional rights of this group, it's going to be litigated.
Right, and force them to spend a lot of money that they will never get back.
Well,
time, effort, having their business shut down, and even though it's a nonprofit, they still earn a salary from that of some kind.
Whose constitutional rights are being violated will be able to sue the state of the state of Georgia or the city of Atlanta, and will recover appropriate damages. So
really, they're really going to award them.
Of course, that's how it works.
Okay. I think we both know that it doesn't always work right.
Well, the system isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but that's how it works. I mean, if in fact an individual is damaged by state action, they sue and appropriate damages are paid. Usually these cases are settled out of court for large settlements, but that's how the system works.
So
thank God.
Do you think this was a good, do you see this as a way forward, that this is going to become more common, or do you think that this is going to be an isolated incident?
Well, I have to say, I'm not sure I'm speaking for the oligarchy. I don't understand why the city of Atlanta is going through this. I mean, it's not really worth it. And it's hard to imagine why this individual, who appeared to be unarmed, was shot 57 times. I don't understand how that happens. Now, I've never been a police officer, so I don't know. I've never been in the military, but it's just difficult to imagine how something like that could happen.
Well, here's the thing about this. because Cop City Training City
Okay,
is
stop
needed.
that.
Well, I'm not. Cop City is needed because they're not trained well enough. And they don't, many of them just are not cut out for it at all because they are not confident in their abilities to defend themselves. And when you're not confident in the abilities to defend yourself, you make poor judgments that end up having dire consequences. And that's why I would say probably half of the police force is probably not actually suited for the job. Either A, that they're not confident in defending themselves, or B, they're a bully and they love abusing the power. And there's plenty of them too. Certainly a training city where you could make more scenarios, give longer training sessions, more involved, longer duration, all of this type of stuff, so that you could give people the experience. Like, I agree, that's an important thing that needs to happen for law enforcement. The other thing that needs to happen is law enforcement agents actually need to understand the law and what they're allowed to do and what they're not. And I would love to see the test scores that you have to get for being a law enforcement agent of what the law is. I suspect that it's like getting into Amazon. Not very hard. Can you move? Can you fire the gun? Probably that's about as much, because you see these fat fucks. They can't be policemen. There's a third of them. Come on. It's
Okay.
ridiculous. So
Your project is getting a little fiery.
it's just no. Look, it's both sides of it. I'm representing both sides, and that is real. They do need better training. They would be better officers if they did better profiling, personality profiling, to get rid of the psychopaths and the timid ones, that you get people that really want to do law enforcement because they want to help their community and they want to uphold the law and they want to always use de-escalation over escalation and those are the police officers you want. And then you should pay the shit out of them because they're going to do a great job. They are risking their lives. It's worth it then.
Oh, so you're not in favor of defund the police?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because you still will always have a population of people that cheat the system one way or another. And evolution shows us even slime molds have cheater cells within them. Cheating is genetic. It is a part and parcel of being a living organism. We are programmed at some level to cheat. So there will be bad actors, and the people want to be protected from the bad actors.
Well, that's true. That is true. And so what you are a proponent of is the training facility that the city of Atlanta is trying to build in public property. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Oh. What I'm not a proponent of is them shooting people for being protesters and then raiding a nonprofit who helps protesters. If I told you that and didn't tell you and told you that that happened in Germany in the 40s, you'd be like, oh, that's the SS. Like, that's the level of tactic that they're using.
Okay, the very fact that you are allowed to compare what is going on in Atlanta with the SS shows that this is a free country and your free speech is guaranteed by the Constitution. So this is an isolated incident that the courts will determine who was right and who was wrong. Well,
here's hoping, because it's scary that this could even happen. It is, because that means there's, and if they call these people terrorists, that could stick. That's the thing, and that's the kind of language they're using. Once again, back to this, we made this loophole, this terrorism loophole, and you can call almost goddamn anything terrorism. If they call it terroristic acts, they don't have to give you shit. They don't have to do shit for you. You have no rights. You're in
Please,
limbo.
please do not bring up Obama's legislation.
I will bring up Obama's legislation, jerk. Should have never signed that. I mean, and the fact that the Senate let it happen, the fact that everybody is just okay with it, just shows you that how deep that corruption goes. They like it. They like that they can whisper to somebody in the CIA and then have somebody arrested on terrorist charges just because they said it. This is how easily it makes those lines of corruption possible.
Well, that's your view, but clearly at the time, Congress and the administration felt it was necessary in order to protect the American people.
Right. Right. Every level of protection is actually just another level of control. And those are the real facts. So
now, just like 5 minutes ago, we're saying how important it is for the police to be trained in
two
order
different
to protect
things.
the population.
Two different things.
Is it?
Yes.
Thing.
The one thing is at a global structural level within the oligarchy that can actually do anything it wants. The police force on the ground only has that power should the oligarchy allow it to stand.
Well, we do need to protect ourselves. So I have to shrug my shoulders and move on.
All right. So other thing I wanted to discuss with the oligarchy is how the presidential races are starting to shape up. Let's start with the fun side for you, oligarchy, the Republican side. What did you think of Chris Christie and Mike Pence putting their hats in the ring?
I think that the more candidates there are, unfortunately, may lead to Trump's nomination because it will splinter all the opposing numbers.
Will it really, though? Will it really? I mean, could Chris Christie or Mike Pence get any real sliver of support?
Well, you have to assume that they're going to take their states. And
you think so?
I think you have to assume that, yeah. Why wouldn't Pence take Indiana? Take New Jersey? He was the governor. So
they didn't like him.
Say what?
They didn't like him.
Well, he got reelected, so they clearly did it.
Bridgegate, they hate him now.
Well, I don't think you can speak for the Republican Party in New Jersey. But my point is that it will splinter. Most likely, it will splinter those people who would oppose Trump. Now, you know, Trump is going after DeSantis because DeSantis is the only viable Republican candidate. And so that's why, you know, Trump is attempting to derail his campaign. Hopefully that will not work. You know, you don't see Trump going after Pence or Chris Christie at this point, or Rick Scott or Nikki Haley. One has to assume that DeSantis is on Trump's radar as, you know, his only viable rival.
What did you think of DeSantis's first messages? Do you like what he's focused on?
Well, I think he's the only person who can legitimately beat whoever the Democratic candidate is, because he speaks for the value system of the bulk of the American people.
But I mean, on like key issues, like he's not saying end the war in Ukraine. And I think I mean, there's plenty of Republicans that are still anti-war. So I think the war might be the number one issue of 2024 if it's still going on, which at the rate it's going, it most definitely will be.
I think that's your number one issue. I don't think that's the number one issue for the American people. I think
Oh, really? Oh, well, the oligarchy would know, so do tell. What is the number one issue for the American people?
I think the number one issue for the American people is, as always, the economy. And clearly, this current administration is doing its best to destroy the economy. Interest rates continue to rise, or will continue to rise.
They just printed 350 billion. Yeah, interest rates are going up.
And I think inflation will continue. Now, there are parts of the economy which are doing very well. There's certainly the employment figures. I think ultimately, whoever the Democratic nominee is going to have to defend themselves against an economy that is tottering on recession. They're already at recession in Europe. And
yeah, Germany's in recession. I mean,
in any case, my personal opinion is we're in recession, though historically, you have to have a negative
GDP.
GDP for a number of quarters, and the way it's calculated, given the employment figures, we don't have that. But clearly, the American people are not happy with the direction of the economy, and the polls show that. Also, I think important is the family values that are being attacked in the media and by the left wing, and I think that's going to be
well, it's just like, I hope no one ever shops at Target again. You don't need to be selling tuck clothing to children.
Okay, I don't know whether you've seen this most recent horror that occurred in Idaho. The senior was saying at a school assembly that boys are boys and girls are girls, and apparently the student body erupted in cheers and and clapping and whatnot. He's been denied the right to go to graduation, and
Ridiculous.
and this part really puzzles me, is he had an offer to be a firefighter, to go into training to be a firefighter. Now, that's not connected to the school at all, but apparently the offer was withdrawn.
As a firefighter. This is why normally I would be like, oh my God, fuck DeSantis. I could never imagine him as president, blah, 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 blah. But if he were to actually do this, that's worth a lot. I mean, I believe whoever comes out of the Democratic Party will also hold that view. I think that both sides have to address this woke nonsense that's a mind virus throughout the entire country right now. At least 30% of the country is infected with this woke mind virus that science goes right out the window, and you can't have a logical discussion with any of them because they won't recognize reality. The reality of it is there's two sexes.
Okay, wait. The point I'm trying to make is, how does this happen in Idaho? I mean,
I don't know, because Idaho won't even legalize weed. It's not like somebody's getting high and being like, hey, we should really do this, man. No, it's not happening.
I would think, while that may happen in California or New York, how does it happen in Idaho?
Because this mind virus is powerful, and it's powered by the oligarchy, and specifically...
No, it is not.
Yes, it is, because Bill Gates is the one that's really behind it, and it is a ploy to make this society more depraved so that there's more chances for controlling people.
Wait, do you mean more divided? as opposed to the word depraved?
No, both. No, because you're feeding into these lunatics that think that this is okay. It's not okay to give children hormone blockers before they even know who they really are. And you don't know who you are until your brain is finished forming. And that's 25 years old. And it is not too much to ask.
Okay, well, we're getting a little far afield here, but let me assure you, the oligarchy is not in favor of
Well, neither are the gays from this
children.
side. So there you go.
What?
I said, and neither are the gays from this side. I'm representing the gays right now, so neither are the gays.
Anyway, the oligarchy is not in favor of grooming children to change their sex.
Parts of the oligarchy are.
You know, as the representative of the oligarchy in this podcast, I have to tell you, no, that is not the case. Now, maybe there are individuals in the oligarchy who feel this is appropriate, but the oligarchy as a whole does not approve of this. Let me assure you.
Well, I will put links below to Bill Gates' involvement in propagating this nonsense. And I encourage everyone to not buy Microsoft there.
I do not have Microsoft stock.
Good.
I did have it and made money off of it, but I do not have it now.
Did you see these AR goggles that Apple's putting out?
Did I see them?
Oh, you got to go see it. They're amazing. Like, you should be buying Apple stock right now. This technology is buy more. I mean,
okay, Apple stock is approaching a year high. So we're talking about $180 a share. I am not buying it.
I'm telling you, oligarchy, this is a good one because the market cap is over $1 trillion.
Yeah, we all know that. What I am doing is I'm selling options on my shares. Now I've only done this with 300 shares, but I have two sets of options at $200 and one set of options at $210. So I am making money off of this, but I'm not buying the stock. I'm selling options on my stock.
Well, aren't you just a genius?
I assume you will be cutting out my name.
Yes, of course. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Democratic side now that we have Marianne Williamson and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
And don't get me involved in this. I think Newsom is the most dangerous person in this country. And
did he announce his candidacy?
No.
Oh, good.
But I cannot understand. You know, I know people in California, and I know they voted for Newsom, and I can't understand why.
I don't either. I don't either.
He is so scary now.
Oh, did you see Cornel West is running?
As what?
For president.
Really?
Yeah. He's interesting. Like,
and despite the systemic racism in this country, how did he get where he is?
Look, Cornel West is a badass. He is a badass. Like, he's just got a way of speaking that he does move the needle. Like, he gets you. And I like his positions. I just don't think he has a shot because he's too real. Like, he's too real. I would love to see him run with RFK for his vice president. I think that Robert F. Kennedy with Cornel West would sweep up.
Wait, isn't he a Republican? Cordell.
Cornel West?
Yeah.
No, no, he was a part of the Bernie movement.
Huh. Who am I thinking of? Who was the African American who ran against Newsom
Oh,
in
I don't
California?
know who that was. I'm talking about the guy that left, was at Harvard and left uh, because they wouldn't give him tenure over his views on Palestine, which were accurate and represent the situation. And just because he didn't like seeing Palestinian children get killed every day, they wouldn't give him tenure. So you have to check him out, but
He's anti-Israeli.
he's not anti anything. He's not anti anybody.
Who's
He
killing
just
Palestinian children?
the Israelis do on the regular.
Oh, please. Are you kidding
Go
me?
read about. Okay, links below, and I'll send you the links. It's
Oh
pretty
my God.
preposterous.
Are being attacked from every every possible area by these terrorists, Muslim terrorists, including the Palestinians. So, in retribution, if some Palestinian children are killed, it's the Palestinians' fault.
Well, that's not true.
Yes,
And
it
I
is.
must admit that for a Catholic oligarchy, you're sounding awful Zionist.
I
But
am and proud of it.
okay.
May I remind you that it was the Muslims who attacked Israel in 1967 and were totally defeated. And so that's why the Golan Heights and the West Bank are part of Israel today. They were not part of Israel prior to 1967, but because of the attacks of Syria, Egypt, and Jordan, they are now part of Israel.
We're talking about human rights violations. I don't
So,
care about that.
talking about the rights of the Israelis to live in peace.
And so do the Palestinians. Everybody has the right to live in peace.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, well.
if the terrorists stopped attacking Israel, Israel would not be defending itself.
Okay, the word terrorist is thrown around a little bit way too much these days. As we can see, nonprofit workers in the U.S. can be called terrorists. So,
are terrorists. Just look at what they did on 9/11.
That's a whole nother story. We'll do. I'll tell you what. Since we were actually in each other's presence during 9/11, on 9/11,
and I saw the plane go into the building.
On 9/11, we will have a 9/11 review. Sounds like fun. We'll have to write that into your calendar.
I don't know where we would disagree.
On everything, pretty much. Okay, let's get into the fun part of the. Well, the last thing I want to say is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going the podcast route, going really on the trail, and his numbers are growing. And I think, so do you think oligarchy? I know this isn't your bailiwick, but do you think that the Democrats will hold a debate or not? Will they allow for presidential debates for 2024 with Biden?
Wait, are you talking about in terms of the primaries or in terms of the general election?
The general election, or even does he have to primary? Will they even run primaries?
Well, of course they have to run primaries. They'll run primaries. Well, why would
because the chair of the DNC was on CNN or NBC, one of those ones. They weren't going to run debates.
Well, that probably makes sense in the sense that Biden can't debate. I mean, his mental state is such that, first of all, my suspicion is he cannot discuss things off the cuff, um, and everything has to be fed to him on a teleprompter, and we know how that works. So I'm not surprised at all that the Democratic powers that be would, in order to protect him, since at this point he's most likely going to be the candidate.
I don't think so. I do not think so. His approval rating is so low. There's no way that they are able to rebound him enough. It's a Kennedy. You're running. I mean, you can't take that away. His last name is Kennedy. He is of the lineage. He
Okay.
is dyed in the wool in the political landscape
But
of
this
this country. And
Carter,
I think that just the name Kennedy alone, he
okay.
probably whoops up on Biden.
May I remind you that this is exactly what happened with Jimmy Carter. And it's going to result in the same thing. Jimmy Carter's going to get the nomination for, as he did after his first term, even though he was opposed, because his lieutenants control the Democratic Party. And we're going to have the same situation where a president who is very unpopular will most likely lose the election, unless, of course, Trump's the nominee, and there's further, the Democrats further politicize the legal system in order to tie him up in terms of these crazy charges, which of course have no real basis in fact.
Well, some of them do. It's just,
well,
they're not going to do anything to him. They're never going to do anything to him. It's all theater.
Okay. Look at this. They are currently there are a number of DAs looking at, or assistant U.S. attorneys looking at prosecuting him for having these classified documents, whereas we now know that Biden had classified documents, and no one is suggesting that Biden be prosecuted for the same thing. So
Ludicrous.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. I don't think you need to get into it. It's just ludicrous.
So we'll have to see how it happens. But my suspicion is I believe Biden will get the nomination. And his only hope, and I think the Democrats are trying to maneuver this into place, is that Trump be the Republican nominee.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it all breaks down. I'm hoping for the Kennedy ticket that is the wild card that comes through, and I think I think that the economy and the Americans would be better for it.
I can't disagree with you. I just say historically, every time we've had a unpopular president, he gets the nomination. I mean, we have Taft in 1912, and he got the Republican nomination over, Teddy Roosevelt. And so what happens? Woodrow Wilson gets elected. It's just, I'm thinking, I can't remember a situation where a sitting president did not get renominated by his party.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's fighting against history, but I'm still hoping for it because ultimately it's needed right now. If neither DeSantis nor RFK get their party's nomination, well, then we're just fucked all over again.
Well,
other than Trump said he would end the war in a day, and if he were to actually do that, well, even that's acceptable.
Well, my position on that is if Trump had been reelected, if the election hadn't been stolen,
Stop it.
oh please, the facts are so clear that election.
Okay, then why did they come out?
Because the oligarchy didn't want anyone to know.
So the oligarchy has a lot of infighting, it seems.
That's why you cannot reveal my identity. My point is that if Trump had been reelected, Putin would never have invaded the Ukraine.
And that's true.
All right.
All right. So is it time for dinosaurs again?
What do you mean again?
That's right. It's time for
okay.
dinosaurs.
Now, what I want to discuss is this claim, this current claim by the scientific community that there was a mass extinction of dinosaurs in 65 million years ago, and that it was caused either by a comet crashing into the Gulf of Mexico or a series of volcanoes or possibly both, and that the dinosaurs were exterminated. And I think that the facts, if you look at this reasonably, if in fact that would be the case, there would be no humans around. There were mammals that eventually evolved into lemurs and then primates and then humans. However, there were dinosaurs that were the same size or smaller than the mammals who coexisted with the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. And so one wonders if there was an extermination event that killed off all the dinosaurs, including these small ones. How is it that any mammals would have survived? It doesn't make any sense. And of course, there is no explanation as to how this could have occurred, because dinosaurs were burrowing and lived in caves and in fissures. And so if in fact it was the mammals who survived because of that, which seems unlikely, why wouldn't the dinosaurs, who also did the same thing, why wouldn't they have survived? So,
well, I want you to keep presenting all your evidence, because then I'm going to tell you a story.
Well, I have presented my...
well, you have other evidence.
Actual evidence. My evidence, all I'm saying is I'm questioning this theory that there was this extinction event 65 million years ago. Now, clearly, dinosaurs are extinct, or excepting for, crocodiles and alligators and
sharks and
who actually predated or existed with dinosaurs.
But you remember, this all came up because you sent me pictures of dinosaurs being carved at Angkor Wat and in Mexico, and
well, I was going to... That's a very interesting, especially the picture in Angkor Wat, which clearly shows
a stegosaurus.
It's hard to imagine that the builders or sculptors at Angkor Wat, which is, for your audience, in Cambodia, would have essentially found bones of stegosaurus, and from those bones actually depicted a live stegosaurus. And the picture with the sculpture which I sent you clearly shows a live stegosaurus, and it's not anything that would have been around Cambodia in the 9th century AD when Angkor Wat was built. Now, possible that maybe Angkor Wat is much, much older than the current historic, but there's no explanation for it. And of course, there are all these stone carvings of what look to be dinosaurs, which scientists and historians are calling snakes. It's hard to imagine that a brontosaurus which is or
Oh yeah, it's in the like southwest of the United States, those ones.
right. And I say Brontosaurus because I was raised to believe that was the Brontosaurus, but it's actually another dinosaur. But the point is that, it's clearly not a snake. I mean, there's a long head, there are 4 legs, and a long tail. And I know of no snake that, I'm not exhaustive in my knowledge of snakes, but I've never seen a snake that looked like that.
Did you watch that video I sent you
I
about the gravity problem of dinosaurs?
Yes, and very fascinating. I can't remember the
I'll put the
science,
link. I'll put the link for that below.
but and of course I don't have the background to know whether what he's saying is true. But I have
I
to say
do.
it was fascinating to hear that.
Let me explain it to the audience, because common sense tells you it's true. Okay, they have now found these things they call titanosauruses, where their neck would have been 50-foot long and under our current gravity would have weighed 40 tons. In order to be able to move that neck at all without it breaking, you would need to essentially have titanium girders for a neck with no joints in it, because any joint would allow it would not be able to hold that kind of weight. On top of that, you would have had a blood pressure problem of a heart pumping fluid 50 feet into the head of this dinosaur.
Maybe there were more.
Okay, potentially, but it still would have been this nightmare to control blood pressure. So, and they walked on land, and they have footprints of them walking on land. So you have to question whether the Earth's gravity has changed over the evolution of the planet, which already we're into crazy world, but I'm going to keep it out there because there's no evidence to say that it didn't. And certainly the way academic science works, and it's how dogmatic it is, these kinds of ideas get none of the thinking that they actually deserve, because it's nonsense to think that a 50-foot neck could be supported by any animal and weigh 40 tons in this current gravity. But anyways, about the age of things and whether or not humans could have seen dinosaurs. If you think the gravity thing is crazy, the story that I like that lines up the best with the actual geology on the planet as we read it is that the Earth did not always orbit the sun, that originally the Earth orbited Saturn when it was a brown dwarf star, and life could flourish there, no problem, but the gravity may have been quite different, which is why we see many of these megalithic structures, like even granite. If the gravity is reduced, well, now you could make these gigantic granite things and move them around, because they don't really weigh 400 tons. They actually only weigh 40 tons. So now it's something in the realm that humans of the day might have been able to handle, to move, even without the right technology. However, we talked about the technology last time, and that doesn't make a lot of sense either. But if the Earth had orbited Saturn and had a lower gravity, then what happens is the Saturn and the Earth get too close to our sun, and the sun rips the Earth away from Saturn and Venus and Mars. And during this time, this is when all the great cataclysms happen. This is when we see comets in the skies all the time. This is when all of the thunderbolts of the god myths come from, is that there was just this constant electrical storm going on the planet from us being ripped from Saturn and pulled into our current sun's orbit. And the reason that this mucks up the dating, because this could have been only, 40,000, 80,000, 100,000 years ago. It doesn't have to be that long ago. Is that the electrical effects, and this has been reproduced in the lab, can fossilize things instantaneously. So if you could imagine having these incredible electrical storms hitting things, fossilizing it instantaneously, that no, we don't, if that's the case, and that can happen because you can do it in a laboratory setting with plasma, then you could have things that live together, but your dating is all wrong because you're only going off of strata. And even the strata of how they date things, that's not a good method, and I'll put a link down below for that. But if in fact that's the way it went down, and that we live in an electric universe and plasma is what actually runs the cosmos, then to think that dinosaurs could have lived 100,000 years ago is not crazy at all. And why we see them in the forms they are. I mean, they extracted living tissue from a Tyrannosaurus rex that they say is 40 million years old. No living tissue is surviving 40 million years. 40,000 years, maybe you can still get some DNA. But 40 million, you're not getting any DNA.
You have to be careful about the facts you're throwing out. The Tyrannosaurus rex currently is believed to have been extinct 65 million
right,
years.
Okay, but 65 million years. But, if the bone was only 40,000 years, you could see getting viable DNA out of it. If it's really 65 million years old, there is no way you could pull viable DNA out of a Tyrannosaurus rex fossil, yet they did it.
Right. That scientist, Schweitzer, or whatever her name is, she was able to take out soft tissue from her Tyrannosaurus rex bone. But I think while it appears there's evidence that humans may have coexisted with dinosaurs at some point, the problem is the Stegosaurus was not in the Cretaceous period. It lived in a much older period. So,
but this is my point. You're going periods based on what academic science says. If in fact looking at geological layering is not a very good way of measuring time, which it is a good way of measuring time in the recent past, but whether it's a good way of measuring time in eternity, well, actually, there's quite a lot of evidence that it isn't. And that then the way that they're dating it by going down through the rock layers is wrong. And therefore, it could be, and I won't get into it because I can't explain it very well this second, but there is mechanisms by which plasma can cause layering effects where younger things are put at the bottom and older things are put on top. And if I can find the video quickly, I'll put it down there. But this is also a possibility. So if they're wrong, which you have to, science is questioning. That is science. You don't accept something until it's proven 1,000 million billion %. And it's just never wrong. We have plenty of examples where dating layering is wrong. So therefore, all of it needs to be questioned. And given all of this new evidence, more study needs to be put into it, period.
Well, we're getting rather far afield from my point, which is if in fact the dinosaurs were exterminated due to this either a comet or a meteorite or volcanic activity, then there would be no mammals either, and there wouldn't be any humans. So that's the point I wanted to make.
And my point is that
this whole I can't speak to that. It just
I'm only saying that if we're really logical human beings, then we have to do the science. And the science is leading us to reevaluating our dating methods and our entire history. And
Well,
that needs to be addressed.
the gravity thing is a puzzle because I mean, these dinosaurs were gigantic, and how they, I mean, at the present time, the largest creatures on Earth are elephants, and the tallest creatures on Earth are giraffes, and
They were rinky-dink compared to dinosaurs.
right. I mean, an elephant is like 10 tons, and these dinosaurs are like 100 tons. And so
or more. Some of
hard,
them are 200 tons.
well, in any case, it is hard to imagine how is it that today, in today's world, our largest creatures are elephants and giraffes, but in the past, millions of years ago, they were much bigger and much taller. And that's
Yeah,
all.
maybe there were giants, and maybe there were Nephilim and all kinds of other stuff.
Well,
Starts to
Nephilim.
make those stories more believable, doesn't it?
Well, it's in the Bible, so there were Nephilim. I'm sure you don't want the podcast to go in that direction, but clearly,
We will. One of these days, we'll have to discuss the Nephilim because it's a good one. So,
yeah. Listen, there's no question as to what happened. And clearly, the flood was designed to destroy the Nephilim.
well, the flood was caused by Venus being a comet. So there you go.
By Venus, what?
Being a comet, as the Earth separated from Saturn and moved to the sun.
Venus is a planet.
No, Venus was a comet. Now it's a planet. Well, Venus was a planet, became a comet, and then became a planet again.
All right. Well.
All right, Oligarchy. It was great talking to you again, and we will talk to you next week. You have a great time there in Oligarchy World.
All right.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
If you stayed to the end of the video, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm dedicated to using my lifetime of experiences in the sciences to help everyone have a better understanding of the world we live in. I'm also really trying to live as a creative. And to do that, I need support from the people that enjoy my work. You can check out my Patreon as well, where you can see original music and my digital art. Thanks.